Hi and welcome. I'm Andy Mioch and you are watching AnewZ. Here are the headlines. New round of Ukraine-Russia peace talks set for Wednesday in Istanbul, according to Volodymyr Zelensky. Iran says it will not abandon its nuclear enrichment program. Turkey opens the door of one of the world's largest defense exhibitions. Thank you for tuning in. Russia and Ukraine are set to hold a new round of direct peace talks in Istanbul on Wednesday, according to Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. The news came after another Russian airstrike on Kyiv on Monday that left at least 2 killed and several others injured. The French foreign minister paid Ukraine's capital a surprise visit the same day in a show of support.
Talks between Ukraine and Russia are set to resume in Turkey this Wednesday, according to Ukrainian officials, even as Russia intensifies its missile and drone attacks on Ukrainian cities. It comes 7 weeks after the last round of discussions to negotiate a ceasefire. In Kyiv, Ukraine's foreign minister said meaningful negotiations can only happen with key players at the table.
It is important that future talks, once the dates are agreed, that the other side is able to discuss the most important issues, such as ending the war and achieving ceasefire. In order to do this, one of the proposals is to hold a meeting at the level of Zelensky and Putin. The participation of Trump, Erdogan and other European leaders would be beneficial.
French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot was in Kyiv in a show of support for the war-torn country on Monday. He backed a high-level summit, but said that a ceasefire must come first.
Discussions must begin, but on a basis that respects the interests of both parties, because diplomacy is not about submission. It starts with a ceasefire, because as the President of the United States so aptly put it, you cannot negotiate peacefully under bombs.
As air raid sirens wailed across Kyiv on Monday, locals took shelter in metro stations, some of which were hit by Russian missiles.
It was very scary when the attack happened. There was a little panic, but because life has taught us how to behave, we've all gotten used to it.
In a late-night address, President Zelensky says the goal remains simple: peace.
Everyone working to protect life and limit Russia's war potential is working toward achieving peace. Russia must end this war. It itself started. Nobody else needs this war but Russia. There will definitely be peace.
France says it's ready to ramp up sanctions if Moscow rejects a ceasefire. 2 earlier rounds of talks in Istanbul led to prisoner swaps between the two warring countries, but no progress towards ending the war itself.
Ahead of the fresh round of talks between Kyiv and Moscow, Russian forces have intensified attacks across Ukraine. Drone and bomb strikes in Odessa, Sumy and Donetsk regions have killed at least 1 child and injured more than a dozen others.
In Ukraine's northeastern Sumy region, Russian drones targeted civilian infrastructure on the night of July 21st. According to regional officials, 11 people were injured, including a 5-year-old boy. Fires broke out at the scene as emergency services rushed to respond. Hours later, in the Donetsk region, a guided aerial bomb hit a multi-story residential building in the town of Kramatorsk. The impact killed a 9-year-old boy and injured 5 others, triggering a large fire that took hours to control. Air raid alerts were also reported in Odessa, where overnight explosions followed another Russian drone assault. According to local officials, Russian drones struck Odessa overnight on July 22nd, damaging residential buildings and civilian infrastructure. The attacks set cars on fire, shattered windows, and ignited a blaze at an administrative building, with explosions reported around 2:23 a.m. Odessa has faced multiple attacks this month, including a cluster missile strike on July 3rd that killed 2, and a deadly drone attack on July 19th. The attacks come amid international pressure for a ceasefire. Peace talks between Ukraine and Russia are scheduled to resume on July 23rd. Adding to the tension, US President Donald Trump has threatened to impose severe tariffs on Russia within 50 days if no deal is reached, a move that could escalate geopolitical and economic pressure on the Kremlin.
Germany and the United States have agreed to send 5 Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine. The deal was reached during German defense chief's recent trip to Washington.
Germany's Defense Minister Boris Pistorius says the United States and Germany have agreed to deliver 5 Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine. The agreement was reached during his recent meeting with U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
Germany will provide additional air defense systems and much-needed ammunition. On top of that, I agreed with Pete Hegseth during my trip to Washington, D.C. last week that Germany will contribute to providing the 5 urgently needed Patriot systems as quickly as possible.
Earlier this month, U.S. President Donald Trump said Washington would send advanced weapons, including Patriots, to Ukraine via NATO, citing the country's need to defend itself from Russia. He said the weapons would be fully paid for by the alliance. The Patriot missile system, regarded as one of the best in the world, can detect and intercept a wide range of incoming aerial threats, particularly high-end ballistic missiles. Its deployment comes as Moscow ramps up nightly missile and drone attacks amid its full-scale war against Ukraine. Pistorius says coordination with partners on delivering the systems will continue in the coming days. Washington has already sent 3 Patriot batteries to Ukraine, with Germany providing 3 more. Another battery was contributed by a European coalition, though not all systems are currently operational due to routine maintenance rotations.
Chinese President Xi Jinping is set to host European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen in Beijing for the 25th China-EU summit on Thursday. The visit comes as both sides seek to ease trade tensions over electric vehicles and market access. Our Mahnur Makhdoom brings more from Beijing.
China has officially announced that President Xi Jinping will host the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President in Beijing on Thursday for the 25th China-EU summit. The announcement marks a significant diplomatic moment as both sides commemorate 50 years of China-EU relations. The summit also comes amid mounting trade friction between the two sides, especially over Chinese EV exports to Europe. The EU recently imposed provisional tariffs on Chinese EVs, citing unfair state subsidies that could distort European markets. In response, China warned against protectionism and launched its own anti-dumping probe into European brandy imports. This high-level dialogue is expected to address these issues and explore ways to de-escalate the situation while preserving long-term economic cooperation. Despite this tense economic climate, both sides have signaled a desire to keep communication open. Analysts believe the summit will not only address trade issues, but also broader topics such as climate cooperation, global security, and supply chain resilience. China will likely use this opportunity to push back against what it sees as a decoupling mindset in Europe, while the EU may press for greater market access and regulatory transparency in China. Manu Makhdoom, AnewZ, Beijing.
Foreign ministers of 28 countries, including the UK, France and Canada, as well as the EU Commissioner for Equality, have issued a joint statement saying the war in Gaza must end now and Israel must comply with international law. The statement said the suffering of civilians in Gaza has reached new depths and condemned the, quote, drip-feeding of aid and the inhumane killing of civilians, including children, seeking to meet their most basic needs of water and food. The statement came as Israel launched ground operations in the city of Deir al-Balah in central Gaza for the first time in the 21-month-old war in the Strip. The World Food Programme has raised fresh alarm over conditions in Gaza as aid operations face mounting risks and severe access challenges. The United Nations agency says hunger in Gaza has reached astonishing levels of desperation, with a third of the population going days without food and nearly 100,000 women and children suffering severe malnutrition. It says it has food ready for all Gazans, but cannot deliver it without a ceasefire and safe access.
Well, since the middle of May, we've only been able to move less than 10% of what's needed in terms of number of trucks. So rather than counting trucks, that's kind of what we're looking at as a metric. And so clearly that's not enough. And, during the ceasefire earlier this year, we were moving more than 200 trucks just at WFP food assistance alone and that's the level that's needed. I will say that we have enough pre-positioned outside of Gaza to provide assistance for the entire population for 2 months if we can get a ceasefire and if we can move.
Iran says it won't abandon its nuclear enrichment program, even after major damage from the recent Israeli-Iranian war. Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi told Fox News that the U.S. airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites caused severe setbacks. But he insisted the program is tied not only to science, but also to national pride. Despite the pause in operations due to the damage, Tehran sees enrichment as a core achievement that cannot be abandoned.
Our nuclear program, our enrichment program is not something imported from outside that can be destroyed by bombings. It is developed by ourselves. It is an achievement by ourselves. The technology is there. The scientists are there. The people who have run these facilities are there. Buildings can be rebuilt. Facilities can be rebuilt. Machines can be, replaced because the technology is there. I think the recent attack proved that there is no military option.
On the latest surrounding Iran's nuclear program and the upcoming talks with the Europeans, we're talking with nuclear energy expert Bruno Gonçalves, coming to us from Lisbon. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, having in mind messages we've heard right now from Tehran, they won't abandon enrichment, which is, they say, currently stopped because of severe damage. What would you say might be on the table during the talks with the 3 European signatories of the original nuclear deal this Friday?
Well, I would say that it will be a very complicated talk in the sense that in the frame of the joint comprehensive plan of action that was signed, UK, Germany and France, and in face of this view or these declarations from Iran, they may bring a snapback mechanism which will bring heavy sanctions back into Iran. So these negotiations are crucial for Iran to keep negotiating on the oil market and to have access also to the financial market. So the results are quite important for Iran. So it will be a very complicated negotiation because there's no reason to have a program for high enriched uranium, a civil program for high enriched uranium. And of course, the partners and all the partners and signatories are not willing to accept this view from Iran.
Well, in the run-up to the talks in Istanbul, Tehran said it would consult with Russia and China, not only on its nuclear program, but also the possible reimposition of UN sanctions that you mentioned through the so-called snapback mechanism. Given the nuclear know-how and the political weight of Moscow and Beijing in the UN Security Council, what would you say might be results of such talks?
So China is already a very important market for Iran because after the sanctions from the United States in 2018, China became a very important partner for oil transactions into 2020. By the end of 2022, 1.1 to 1.2 million of barrels per day of oil was traded with China. So in China and Russia, Iran may find the allies that it requires to keep up in the market and to try to compensate the sanctions that may be imposed by the other partners. But of course, this snapback mechanism will be proposed to the UN Security Council and should be accepted by the 15 members of the UN Security Council. So it will be very complicated talks, but China and Russia are by far important partners to allow Iran to continue on the markets.
Well, Iran also said that it's still open to indirect talks with the US, and that could be a win-win situation, as the foreign minister of Iran said, as Tehran does not seek nuclear weapons. If those talks do continue, What kind of a deal might be struck in your opinion? Would it be maybe something similar to the original JCPOA that Trump withdrew the US from during his first term?
It seems very difficult to have a similar agreement to the JCPOA agreement, because the JCPOA agreement foreseen that there would be a cap on uranium enrichment to 3.67%. Iran by far exceeded already this cap. And also the amount of the stockpile of enriched uranium would be reduced to 300 kilograms, which also was by far exceeded. So it looks very unlikely that US accepts this deal if Iran continues insisting on enriching uranium. There's no reason, no civil reason to do that. And also the US may be heavily pressed by their allies in the region. Israel, Saudi Arabia were always very concerned with the movements in the Iran nuclear program. So these maybe also should also enter into the equation, and for certain will affect the negotiation.
Bruno, thank you so much for joining us and providing us with your insight.
Thank you very much.
In other news, the Trump administration is withdrawing from the United Nations Cultural Agency, UNESCO. It's the second time President Donald Trump has pulled out of the organization, and this time it takes effect at the end of 2026. For more details, we go to Washington and our Nick Harper.
Another term in office, another chance to withdraw the US from UNESCO. Donald Trump, during his first term in the White House, decided to pull the US out of the UN's cultural organization. His successor, Joe Biden, rejoined the organization, only for Donald Trump to now announce it's time to pull the US out once again. We're told that this will take effect at the end of next year. The State Department's spokesperson, Tammy Bruce, put out the announcement saying continued involvement in UNESCO is not in the national interest of the United States. Remember, Donald Trump is all about America first, not about multilateralism, which is something that this UN organization very much represents. Tammy Bruce going on to say that the UNESCO organization has an outsized focus on a globalist ideological agenda for international development. And she said quite clearly that was at odds with the US's America First foreign policy. The US does dislike international organizations under Donald Trump. He is not keen on that idea of working with other countries in a multilateral format. He has already withdrawn the United States out of the WHO, the World Health Organization, and also the UN's Human Rights Council. UNESCO has put out a statement saying, however regrettable, this announcement was anticipated. And UNESCO, it said, was prepared for it. They also say that the financial impact of the US decision will be limited. The US only funds the overall budget by about 8%, and we're told that UNESCO has already diversified in recent years, finding other financial sources. And remember, in the past, the US has accused the United Nations and UNESCO in particular of anti-Israel bias. UNESCO, for example, back in 2011, allowed Palestine to become a full member of UNESCO. Tammy Bruce from the State Department also citing that growing anti-Israel rhetoric within the organisation was part of this US decision to withdraw once again. Nick Harper for AnewZ in Washington, D.C.
The third Shusha Global Media Forum has wrapped up with clear takeaways on how the media landscape must adapt and respond to the challenges of the digital age. Panelists drove home a key message that media literacy isn't optional.
The third Shusha Global Media Forum, held under the theme Digital Pathways, Strengthening Information and Media Resilience in the Age of AI, successfully concluded after 3 dynamic days of high-level dialogue, international collaboration, and bold thinking. From the outset, the forum reaffirmed Shusha's role as more than a historical city, It is now a global platform for shaping the future of media in a rapidly evolving digital landscape. With over 140 international guests from 52 countries, the event convened journalists, policymakers, digital experts, and academics for urgent conversations on truth, trust, and technology. On day one, President Ilham Aliyev engaged in a candid Q&A with international journalists, addressing questions on geopolitical conflicts, energy policy, media bias, and Azerbaijan's strategic vision. From a Ukrainian journalist's emotional inquiry on resilience in wartime to sharp questions on US-Azerbaijan relations, the president's message was resolute. Never yield to occupation. Always protect sovereignty and never politicize energy. The day's discussions made it clear open dialogue in respectful settings can illuminate perspectives often misrepresented or ignored. As the second day unfolded, the forum deepened its focus on media literacy, now recognized not merely as a skill, but as a vital line of defense in the age of digital deception and geopolitical manipulation. Hikmat Hajiev highlighted the necessity of classifying and confronting these attacks, while panelists explored hard questions. Can editorial judgment survive AI? Can truth survive algorithmic manipulation? The answers began to emerge in shared understanding, sharp critique, and collective responsibility. As one speaker noted, this year's focus shifted from social media alone to artificial intelligence and digital life itself, a sign of how quickly the media environment continues to evolve. Delegations visited Agdam and Khojaly, witnessing the transformation from devastation to renewal, an experience that lent deeper weight to the discussions on narrative, memory, and truth. The final day spotlighted innovation. AnewZ launched its new opinion section, unveiled by Deputy Editor-in-Chief Orkun Amashov, creating a platform for sharper analysis and honest debate. The session included the screening of Destination Shusha, a documentary produced by AnewZ that illustrated the cultural and strategic heartbeat of the region. Right after, discussion panels emphasized the changing nature of journalism under the influence of AI and how the responsibility to uphold truth and accuracy is more important than ever. The forum examined how platforms can both inform and mislead, and how rebuilding public trust is now a mission that journalism must take seriously. From China to Europe, speakers echoed a shared message. The third Shusha Global Media Forum was more than a conference. It was a timely intervention. Shusha emerged as a venue for clarity, solidarity, and strategic foresight. As the forum drew to a close, it left behind a powerful message. The path forward lies in resilience, not just of infrastructure or sovereignty, but of information, media, and truth itself.
Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev expressed gratitude to US President Donald Trump for sharing his remarks on social media regarding US-Azerbaijan relations. Aliyev praised Trump's commitment to promoting peace both globally and in the South Caucasus, as conveyed during the recent Shusha Global Media Forum. He also reaffirmed Azerbaijan's support for Trump's vision and noted shared values, including strong family traditions. The Azerbaijani president said he remains hopeful that bilateral relations will deepen further under Trump's presidency, wishing him continued success in his efforts. As Georgia faces growing criticism from European institutions, the official visit by Azerbaijan's Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov draws attention. With both countries sharing deep regional ties and strategic interests, the visit is being closely watched for what it signals about Tbilisi's evolving foreign policy direction. Our Nini Nikolaishvili has more.
Azerbaijani Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov met with Georgia's top officials today, including the President, Prime Minister, Speaker of Parliament, and Foreign Minister Maka Botorishvili. The visit framed as a continuation of close strategic partnership. Both sides reaffirmed mutual support for territorial integrity, regional stability, and long-standing economic cooperation. Bayramov highlighted Azerbaijan's $3.6 billion investment in Georgia and praised joint infrastructure project as the center of regional connectivity. But one particular remark stood out. Bayramov called Georgia's 2024 elections very successful and referred to recent high-level visits as an evidence of building trust. This comment comes just days after the European Parliament stated that it no longer recognizes Georgia's government as aligned with European values, underlining contrasting messages from Brussels and Baku. The foreign ministers also discussed regional security, the Azerbaijani-Armenian peace process, and global challenges. Bayramov briefed to his counterpart about post-conflict process development and reconstruction of Karabakh, the region of Azerbaijan. While no major agreements were signed, the tone of this visit reinforced bilateral strategic partnership and relationship, the one that is becoming increasingly important as Georgia navigates very tense geopolitical environment. It's Nini Nicolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, AnewZ.
Still in Georgia, the country's Prime Minister Irakli Kobahidze has dismissed accusations of pro-Russian sentiment within his government, labeling them as part of an anti-Georgian propaganda campaign. Kobahidze said on social media the reasons for such claims are Georgia's refusal to follow foreign instructions, the removal of what he called agents from state institutions, protection of sovereignty, rejection of, quote, LGBT propaganda, and non-involvement in war. The EU has repeatedly accused Tbilisi of drifting away from a pro-Western path towards closer ties with Russia and China. Outlet Minval Politica published information identifying the officer who allegedly gave the order to shoot down the Azal passenger plane. According to the report, Major General Alexander Tolopilo ordered the downing of the plane. Lieutenant Colonel Nikolai Orliansky then passed the command to Captain D.S. Paladichuk. An anonymous letter sent to Minval Politica reportedly confirms Paladichuk's crew was under Tolopilo's command during the December 2024 crash. It alleges Tolopilo avoided responsibility by blaming Rostov air traffic personnel and falsely claiming missiles self-destructed, a claim disproved by an internal investigation. Despite this, Tolopilo was promoted. Russian authorities have not commented on the claims. Kazakhstan plans to boost oil exports through the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan route by an additional 100,000 tons this year. It's part of a broader effort to strengthen regional ties in energy, logistics, and trade. Our Fariza Kalimurzina has the details.
Kazakhstan is set to increase oil shipments through the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline by an additional 100,000 tons this year. The decision was announced following talks between Kazakhstan's Minister of Energy Yerlan Akhenchenev and Georgia's Minister of Economy and Sustainable Development Maryam Kverishvili. Akhenchenev highlighted Georgia's role as a key transit hub, saying it plays a vital part in Kazakhstan's efforts to diversify its oil export routes. He noted that 1.4 million tons of Kazakh oil moved through the pipeline last year, and that figure is set to rise to 1.5 million tons this year. He also pointed to Georgia's transport infrastructure as a strong and stable part of the supply chain. The ministers reviewed the current operations and development prospects of Kazakhstan's key assets in Georgia, including the Batumi seaport and Batumi oil terminal, which play a crucial role in regional logistics. They also discussed opportunities in green energy. The focus was on aligning Kazakhstan's Trans-Caspian energy corridor, developed with Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan, with Georgia's Black Sea power cable project. Both sides expressed interest in creating a unified energy route linking Central Asia and Europe. In a separate meeting, Georgian minister also met with Kazakhstan's Prime Minister Uljas Bektenov. Their talks centered on expanding transport and logistics cooperation, especially through the Trans-Caspian International Transport Route and boosting trade in agriculture. Kazakhstan proposed increasing exports of grain, dairy, meat and confectionery products to Georgia. In this context, the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline is a major export route for Caspian oil. It stretches 1,768 kilometers through Azerbaijan, Georgia and Turkey and has a daily capacity of up to 1.2 million barrels. Fariza Kalimurzana, AnewZ, Almaty, Kazakhstan.
Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan's Sokar have agreed to launch joint oil exploration and production on the Ustyurt Plateau. The deal follows Uzbekistan President Shavkat Mirziyoyev's recent visit to Baku. According to the country's energy minister, the full operation is expected to start by the end of 2025. The project will involve digital technologies, well productivity upgrades and local workforce training, with Sokar playing a key role in both technical and infrastructure development. Turkey has become Europe's fastest growing energy supplier in 2024, according to the latest global energy statistics report by KPMG and the Energy Institute. Its total energy supply jumped by 5.1%, which is the highest growth rate across the continent. That pushed Turkey's global share to 1.2%, ranking it third in Europe after Germany and France. Globally, energy demand rose just over 2%, hitting a record high, while electricity demand grew more than 4%, driven by accelerating electrification. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says there should be no delay in reviving his country's accession talks with the European Union. Speaking to reporters, Erdogan said that should happen immediately without new conditions. He reaffirmed Ankara's commitment to full EU membership and urged Brussels to drop what he called political barriers and double standards. Turkey opened the doors of one of the world's largest defense exhibitions, hosting military and defense delegations from more than 40 countries.
The 17th edition of the International Defense Industry Fair has opened in Istanbul, showcasing cutting-edge military technologies and drawing global attention from defense leaders and manufacturers. Held at the Istanbul Expo Center, the event is organized under the auspices of the Turkish Ministry of National Defense and supported by the Presidency of Defense Industries. IDEF 2025 brings together top-level defense officials, including ministers, deputy ministers, chiefs of general staff, and military commanders from 33 countries. More than 400 international companies from 44 countries are exhibiting the latest in defense technology. The fair features specialized sections for land, air, and naval systems. On display are main battle tanks, armored vehicles, missiles, air defense systems, UAVs, aircraft engines, satellite technologies, and naval platforms, including combat ships, unmanned surface and underwater vehicles, and advanced command and control systems. The event runs through July 27th, with the final 2 days open to the general public.
Our very own Nuray Mustafa is at the venue of the defense exhibition and brings more from Istanbul.
Reporting from Istanbul, the 17th International Defense Industry Fair, IDEF 2025, has officially commenced. This week, Turkey stands at the center of global attention. The world's leading defense companies, government delegations, and military officials have gathered at the Istanbul Expo Center. First launched in 1993, IDEF has become one of the most prestigious events in the defense industry. This year, over the 1,000 1,200 companies from more than 50 countries are participating. In addition to hosting the fair, Turkey is also showcasing its transformation from a regional power into a global defense player. Leading firms such as Baykar, Aselsan, TUSAŞ and Roketsan are unveiling their latest innovations, from unmanned aerial vehicles to AI-powered combat systems. IDEF is not just a weapon exhibition, it also serves as a hub for defense diplomacy. NATO allies, along with representatives from the Middle East, Africa and Central Asia, are holding bilateral meetings and are discussing avenues for cooperation. This year, the exhibition space has expanded to include both the Istanbul Expo Center and Atatürk Airport, allowing for more displays and interactive activities. One of the standout additions is the Defenders of Tomorrow Zone, DOT, where university projects and startups are showcasing creative ideas that shape the future of industry. Panels and seminars are ongoing, where experts are discussing the sector's key challenges. Traditional ship visits have been organized closer to the exhibition area the year, offering direct access to naval technologies. IDEF 2025, where technology, diplomacy and innovation converge, will run until 27 July.
At the Istanbul exhibition, AnewZ got an exclusive interview with Selçuk Bayraktar, the chairman of Baykar Technologies, the company world-renowned for its unmanned aerial vehicles. Here's what Bayraktar had to say on the evolving defense partnership between Turkey and Azerbaijan and the domestic development of top-of-the-line defense technologies.
I think the Turkish states are reviving their defense establishment and making a big mark in history in the defense world. And Turkey has made a significant advancement in the last 20 years, especially in the field of unmanned systems. Right now, Baykar is the leading exporter and the producer of big-sized drones. TB2 Bayraktar, TB2 Bayraktar, TB3 Akıncı and Kızıl Elma. And Baykar has become the largest producer of big drones in the world now. And also, along with that, the family of munitions and the payload systems are all being developed and produced indigenously in Turkey. Similarly, what we see in Azerbaijan is a similar trend is growing in Azerbaijan as well. The new age of defense technology is being developed by Azerbaijani engineers. We have established Bayraktar Technology Azerbaijan a couple of years back, and the team there is a world-class team, highly educated. Azerbaijani engineers, young folks, and so inshallah they're gonna make a big mark for the freedom of Azerbaijan, for the defense of Azerbaijan and the independence of Azerbaijan, and for the Turkish states. And we hope and pray that they will play a significant role in making the world a much safer place.
Last year presented the Akıncı drone to the President Ilham Aliyev. What are the next steps specifically for the Baykar Technology Azerbaijan?
So they are developing, our fellows there, fellow engineers are developing indigenous systems specifically made in Azerbaijan and designed in Azerbaijan, and will hopefully release the details once they're ready to be released to the public. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Turkey and Azerbaijan have signed a memorandum of understanding on strengthening mutual military security. The agreement, signed in Istanbul by the two countries' defense chiefs, covers joint training, intelligence sharing, cooperation in defense technology, and coordination on regional security. The document was signed during the IDEF 2025 defense exhibition. Iran and Russia have launched the Kasarex 2025 joint naval exercise in the Caspian Sea, aiming to demonstrate continued military cooperation. The drill comes following Iran's recent war with Israel. Some analysts say the exercise is more symbolic, highlighting Russia's effort to maintain influence in the region while distracted by the war in Ukraine, adding that securing the Caspian Sea is crucial for Iran as it pushes to establish new trade corridors with Central Asia and Pakistan. The exercise involves search and rescue drills and includes observers from other Caspian coastal nations. The iconic Turkish Lake Tuz is once again drawing attention with its vivid summer colors, creating a stunning natural spectacle that attracts visitors and highlights the unique environmental processes of the region.
Lake Tuz changes colour each summer as heat and salt levels rise. Tiny plants in the water create a natural red pigment to shield themselves from the sun, while special salt-loving bacteria grow rapidly, turning the lake's surface shades of pink or red with large areas covered by white salt. Lake Tuz is home to over 70% of countries and included on UNESCO's World Heritage Tentative List. Nearly half of Lake Tuz's salt production is exported to more than 50 countries. These exports provide significant foreign exchange earnings for the Turkish economy.
Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you so much for watching, and do stay tuned to AnewZ.